When I asked if I could say a few words at my grandson's birthday, my daughter-in-law leaned in and whispered, "You're so boring. Your husband probably died just to escape you." So yes, I threw my glass in her face. My son snapped, "Apologize or you're out." I just laughed. "Actually," I said, "why don't I tell everyone the real reason she married you? Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments and hit that like and subscribe button." The silence in David's backyard was suffocating. 8-year-old Tommy's birthday party had been going perfectly until that moment. Ashley stood there dripping with what used to be my iced tea, her perfectly done makeup streaking down her cheeks like war paint. Parents and kids stared in stunned silence. I'm Margaret Williams, 67, a widow for 2 years. And if you ask my daughter-in-law the family embarrassment. What Ashley didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this moment for 6 months. "Mom." David rushed to his wife with a napkin, fussing over her. "What the hell is wrong with you?" "Language, David," I said calmly, smoothing my floral blouse. "There are children here." She attacked me. Ashley shrieked. "In front of everyone. She's completely lost it." The funny thing about being 67 is that everyone assumes you're fragile, forgetful, easy to dismiss. Ashley had been counting on that for 3 years. What she didn't count on was that I ran the accounting department at Morrison Financial for 35 years. "I can spot a fraud from a mile away." "I think there's been a misunderstanding," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Ashley seems to think I'm some doting old fool who doesn't pay attention." David grabbed my arm. "Mom, apologize right now or you're leaving." I looked at my son, this man I raised alone after his father's heart attack when he was 12. This boy who used to bring me dandelions and call me his best friend. And here he was, defending a woman who whispered that his father died just to escape me. "Actually, David," I said softly, "I think it's time everyone knew the truth about your wife." Ashley's face turned white beneath her smeared foundation. "What truth?" "There's nothing to tell." I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. "Should I start with the inheritance investigation you ordered on me last month? Or would you prefer I begin with the real reason you picked David?" People leaned in. Even the kids had stopped playing. Tommy clutched his new baseball glove, confused. "Grandma Maggie, what's happening?" he asked. I knelt beside him. "Nothing you need to worry about, sweetheart. Why don't you go show your friends the new treehouse?" When he ran off, I stood and faced the adults. "You see, I've been doing some research these past few months. Amazing what you can find when you actually look." Ashley's hands trembled. "David, she's having some kind of episode. We should call her doctor." "My doctor?" I laughed. "Sweetheart, the only person here who needs medical attention is you. Specifically, a psychiatrist who can explain why you target men with elderly parents." David's anger faltered. "Mom, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that your wife never loved you. She studied you, researched our family, our finances, our vulnerabilities. She knew exactly what she was doing when she accidentally bumped into you at that coffee shop. 3 years ago, the temperature seemed to drop 20 degrees. That's not true." David said, but he didn't sound sure. "Oh, but it is." I smiled sweetly at Ashley. "Should I tell them about the private investigator's report, dear? Or would you like to explain yourself?" That was the moment I knew I had them exactly where I wanted them. The birthday guests scattered like leaves in a storm. Ashley locked herself in the bathroom. David paced the kitchen like a trapped animal. And I sat on the back porch swing, feeling more alive than I had in years. "Mom, you can't just make accusations like that," David said for the third time in 10 minutes. I sipped a fresh glass of iced tea and watched Tommy kick a soccer ball against the fence. That boy deserves to grow up in a home built on truth, not lies and manipulation. "Accusations?" I raised an eyebrow. "Son, I haven't made any accusations yet. I simply suggested that Ashley might have some explaining to do." David ran his hands through his hair, the same nervous habit he'd had since childhood. "What private investigator? What report? You're not making any sense." Poor David, he truly had no idea. Ashley had played him flawlessly and I'd watched it for 3 years. Biting my tongue until it nearly bled. "David, sit down." I patted the space beside me on the porch swing. "Let me ask you something. When Ashley first met you, what did she say she did for work?" He blinked, confused. "She was between jobs, looking for something in marketing. And before that, she'd been caring for her elderly aunt in Florida. The aunt died and left her a small inheritance." I nodded slowly. "Such a touching story. So believable. And total nonsense." His face drained of all color. "How do you know that?" I took out my phone again and pulled up a certain email. "Because I hired a real private investigator to look into your wife's background. After some things started bothering me." "What things?" Upstairs, the bathroom door slammed. We heard Ashley talking in hushed, frantic whispers on the phone. "Interesting. Who would she be calling at a time like this?" "Well, for starters," I said, She knew an awful lot about our family finances for someone you'd supposedly just met. Remember your first dinner at my house? She mentioned that your father's life insurance had been substantial. How would she know that? David frowned. She said you'd told her. I never told her anything about your father's insurance. David, I've never discussed money with Ashley at all. She just knew. I saw the wheels turning in his head. David wasn't stupid, just trusting. Something he'd inherited from his father. God rest his soul, there were other things, too, I continued. She knew which bank I use. She knew about the trust fund your father set up for Tommy. She even knew about the life insurance policy I have on myself. Maybe I told her those things. Did you? He hesitated. A long, heavy silence. I don't think so. Maybe in passing, David, think. In your 3 years of marriage, has Ashley ever pushed you to move me into a retirement home? His silence was answer enough. Has she suggested that maybe it's time for me to update my will? Make sure everything is in order? She's just concerned about your future, Mom. Whose future exactly? Ashley appeared in the kitchen doorway, her face freshly washed but her eyes red. She'd changed dresses probably because the first one still smelled like iced tea. David. We need to talk privately, she snapped. Avoiding my gaze, actually, I said, rising from the swing. I think the three of us should talk together. Unless you'd prefer to have this conversation in front of the whole neighborhood tomorrow. Ashley's jaw tightened. I don't know what game you're playing, Margaret, but it ends now. Game? I smiled. Oh, sweetheart. The game is just getting started and you're going to love how it ends. 6 months ago, I thought Ashley was just young and a little self-centered. I made excuses for her the way mothers do when they want their children to be happy. But then she made a mistake. One that opened my eyes to everything. It was a Wednesday morning in January. I had come over to babysit Tommy while David went to a client meeting. Ashley was supposed to be at her yoga class, but instead, I found her in David's home office, going through his filing cabinet. Oh. She jerked upright when she saw me. Margaret, I didn't hear you come in. I stood in the doorway, car keys still in my hand. What are you looking for, dear? Just some tax documents. David asked me to find the property tax records for our accountant. It sounded reasonable except for one small problem, Ashley. You do realize property taxes are handled by the mortgage company, right? They're part of your escrow payment. For a split second, her mask slipped. Something cold and calculating flashed behind her eyes before her sugary smile returned, of course. Silly me, I must have misunderstood. She shut the filing cabinet and breezed past me. I should get to yoga. Traffic is going to be terrible. After she left, I walked into David's office. The filing cabinet was unlocked as usual because David was always meticulous with important papers. I opened the drawer Ashley had been digging through. Insurance policies, investment accounts, my will, the trust documents for Tommy's college fund. Everything financial was in that drawer and it had very clearly been rifled through. That afternoon, I called my lawyer. Margaret, good to hear from you. Frank Peterson had handled our family's legal affairs for 20 years. What can I do for you? Frank, I need you to tell me something confidentially. Has anyone contacted your office asking about my will or any of my legal documents? There was a pause. That's an odd question, Margaret. Why do you ask? Just answer me, please. No one has contacted me directly. However, I did receive a call about 2 weeks ago from someone claiming to be your daughter-in-law. She said you were considering updating your estate planning and wanted to know what documents we had on file. My blood ran cold. What did you tell her? I told her I couldn't discuss any client information without your written authorization. She became quite insistent, said it was urgent for family planning purposes. Did she give her name? She said she was Mrs. Ashley Williams, your son David's wife. I hung up the phone and sat in my kitchen for nearly an hour, staring at the wall. Ashley had tried to access my legal documents by impersonating me to my lawyer. This wasn't curiosity. It wasn't even simple gold digging. This was systematic information gathering. The next day, I called Rebecca Morrison. She'd been my friend for 40 years and still worked at the bank, where I'd kept my accounts for decades. Rebecca, I need a favor. And I need you to keep it between us, of course, Maggie. What's wrong? I need to know if anyone has been making inquiries about my accounts, maybe claiming to be family, asking about balances or beneficiary information. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. Actually, yes, about a month ago, a young woman came in saying she was your daughter-in-law. She said she was helping you organize your finances because you were getting forgetful. What did you tell her? Nothing, of course. But Maggie, she knew things. She knew which accounts you had, approximate balances. Even mentioned your safe deposit box. After I hung up with Rebecca, I sat at my kitchen table and made a list. The filing cabinet, the lawyer, the bank. What else had Ashley been digging into? That evening, I drove to the library and spent 3 hours learning how to hire a private investigator online. By the time I left, I had an appointment with Sandra Hayes Investigations for the following Monday. Sandra's office was small but professional. She was in her 50s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. Mrs. Williams. Tell me what you want to know. I explained everything: Ashley's behavior, the financial inquiries, the uneasy feeling that kept growing. I want to know who she really is, I said. What she was doing before she met my son. And whether she's done this before. Sandra nodded. It'll take a few weeks, maybe a month. I'll need some basic information about her to start. I gave her Ashley's maiden name, her supposed hometown, and her claimed work history. Mrs. Williams, she asked gently. Why are you doing this? If you suspect your daughter-in-law is after money, why not just change your will or move your assets? I thought of Tommy, of David, of the life they built together, because if I'm right about her, my son needs to know. And if I'm wrong, then I owe them both an apology. 3 weeks later, Sandra called me back to her office. Mrs. Williams, you're not going to like what I found. She spread 5 manila folders across her desk like she was dealing cards, each one thick with documents, photographs, and printed emails. My stomach twisted. Mrs. Williams, she said quietly, your daughter-in-law isn't who she says she is. I'd expected it, but hearing it confirmed still felt like a punch to the gut. Tell me everything. Sandra opened the first folder. Ashley Collins isn't even her real name. She was born Ashley Morrison in Ohio. She's 32, not 28 like she told your son. She handed me a copy of her birth certificate. She's been married twice before, both times to men with substantial family wealth or elderly parents. My hands trembled as I held the documents. What happened to the other husbands? Sandra opened the next folder. Husband number 1 was Marcus Henderson, a lawyer in Cincinnati. His mother died 6 months after Ashley married into the family. She left everything to Marcus, who then transferred a significant portion of the assets to Ashley before their divorce 2 years later. Sandra opened the second folder. Husband number 2 was Robert Chen, a tech executive in Seattle. His father died in what was ruled an accident just 8 months after Ashley joined the family. Robert inherited the business and immediately put Ashley on the board of directors. They divorced 18 months later. Ashley walked away with half his assets. I felt sick. Are you saying she killed these people? I'm saying the timing is suspicious, Sandra replied, but there's no evidence of foul play. What I can prove is a pattern of behavior. She pulled out a timeline chart that looked like something straight out of a police investigation. Ashley spent roughly 6 months researching each family before making contact with the target husband. She studies their habits, finances, family dynamics. Then she orchestrates the first meeting. How does she research them? Sandra opened the third folder. Social media, public records, even hiring private investigators of her own. Look at this. She handed me a credit report under Ashley's name. Listed under employment history was Hayes Family Research Services. A 6-month period right before she met David. She worked for a private investigation firm that specializes in asset research. She had access to databases and resources most people don't even know exist. The room began to spin. So she knew everything about our family before she ever met David. Everything. Your husband's obituary listed his accomplishments and charitable giving, which helped her understand your wealth level. David's social media showed his coffee shop visits, gym membership, work schedule. She knew exactly when and where to accidentally bump into him. Sandra handed me a photo from the fourth folder. It showed Ashley sitting in the same coffee shop where she claimed to have met David for the first time, but the timestamp was 2 weeks earlier. She was surveilling him, learning his routines. What about the story of caring for an aunt in Florida? I asked. Complete fiction. During the time she claimed to be in Florida, she was actually living in Portland under another name while finalizing her divorce from Robert Chen. I stared down at the piles of evidence. 3 years of marriage to a professional con artist. 3 years of watching her manipulate my son while planning God knows what. Sandra, what does she want from us specifically? The other husbands were wealthy. David makes good money, but we're not millionaires. Sandra opened the fifth and final folder. That's where you're wrong. Mrs. Williams, she slid a property assessment report toward me. Your house is worth $800. Zero in today's market. Your investment portfolio is around $1.2 million. The life insurance policy your husband left you is worth $500,000. Add in your savings and other assets. You're worth close to $3 million. I nearly fell out of my chair. That can't be right. Your husband was very smart with investments, and property values in your neighborhood have tripled over the last decade. From Ashley's perspective, you represent a significant payday, but I'm healthy. I'm not planning to die anytime soon. Sandra's expression turned serious. Mrs. Williams, I need to ask you something and I want you to really think before you answer. Has Ashley encouraged you to do anything risky to your health? The question startled me. What do you mean? Has she suggested new doctors? New medications? Changes to your routine or diet? Activities that might be dangerous for someone your age? I thought back over the last few months, Ashley pushing me to try rock climbing. Ashley recommending a modern doctor because my current physician was old-fashioned. Ashley urging me to try those herbal supplements she ordered online. Oh my God. I whispered. Mrs. Williams, Sandra said gently. I think your daughter-in-law is planning something. And based on her history, you need to be very careful. I gathered the folders with trembling hands. Sandra, I need copies of everything. Already made them. Mrs. Williams. What are you going to do with this information? I stood up, feeling older than my 67 years but also more determined than I'd felt in decades. I'm going to protect my family even if it means destroying hers. The hardest part about realizing your daughter-in-law is a professional marriage scammer isn't the betrayal or the danger, it's the waiting. For 2 months after Sandra showed me Ashley's real history, I had to sit across from her at Sunday dinners and pretend I didn't know. She was planning to either rob me blind or something even worse. But I didn't just wait. I prepared. I moved my most important assets to new accounts at a different bank. I updated my will with a completely new law firm. I even rented a small safe deposit box across town and stored copies of all of Sandra's evidence there. And most importantly, I started documenting everything Ashley did. The herbal supplements she kept pushing on me, I had them tested. The results showed they contained compounds that could cause irregular heartbeat and dizziness in elderly patients. The new doctor she recommended, I looked into him. His medical license had been suspended into different states for insurance fraud. Every helpful suggestion Ashley made was either a way to get access to my finances or something that could put my health at risk. Then came the phone call that changed everything. I was in my kitchen on a Thursday morning in March when the phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Williams. This is Detective James Morton with the Seattle Police Department. My heart stopped. How can I help you, Detective? Ma'am, I understand you've been inquiring about a woman named Ashley Morrison, formerly Ashley Chen. I sank into a chair. Yes, I have, Mrs. Williams. I'm calling because we've reopened the investigation into Robert Chen's death. The world tilted. I thought his death was ruled an accident. It was, he said, but new evidence has come to light. And Mr. Chen's death isn't the only suspicious incident connected to Mrs. Morrison. He explained that authorities in Cincinnati had contacted them about Marcus Henderson's mother. Her death, originally labeled natural causes, was now being investigated as possible poisoning. Mrs. Williams, are you currently living with Mrs. Morrison or in close contact with her? She's married to my son. We have family dinners every week, ma'am, he said carefully. We believe Mrs. Morrison may be responsible for at least 2 deaths, and possibly planning a third. You could be in serious danger. I told him about the supplements, the doctor, and everything Ashley had been doing. He listened silently. Mrs. Williams, please be careful with anything you eat or drink around her. Don't take any medication she gives you. And whatever you do, don't let her know you suspect anything. Detective, how long before you can arrest her? We need more evidence. Right now everything is circumstantial. We need either a confession or solid proof she's planning to harm you. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen for an hour staring at the phone. Ashley wasn't just a gold digger or a con artist. She was a killer. That evening, David and Ashley came over for our usual Thursday dinner. I served pot roast and tried to act normal while watching my daughter-in-law smile, laugh, and help herself to seconds. Margaret, you outdid yourself tonight, Ashley said as she cleared the plates. The meat was so tender. What's your secret? I wanted to tell her my secret was that I hadn't poisoned it. Just patience, dear. Good things take time. Ashley insisted on doing the dishes. So I had a moment alone with David in the living room. Son, can I ask you something? Sure, Mom. Has Ashley ever talked about her past relationships? David looked uncomfortable. Not really. She says she'd rather focus on our future than dwell on the past. What about her family? Her friends from before she met you, Mom? Why all these questions about Ashley's past? Because your wife is a serial killer, I thought. Out loud I said. I just realized I don't know much about the woman who married my son. David, honey, can you help me? Ashley called from the kitchen. As he left, I noticed Ashley had left her purse on the coffee table. For a moment, I thought about looking through it. Then I remembered Detective Morton's warning, don't let her know you suspect anything. When they got ready to leave, Ashley hugged me like she always did. See you Sunday, Margaret. I'm making my famous apple pie. I wondered if Marcus Henderson's mother had enjoyed Ashley's baking, or if Robert Chen's father had ever complimented her cooking after they left. I called Detective Morton. Detective, she's planning something for Sunday. I can feel it. Mrs. Williams, do you think you can get her to incriminate herself? Maybe record a conversation where she reveals her intentions? I thought about Tommy, about David, about the life they thought they were building with a woman who had killed at least 2 people. Detective, what if I told you I had a better idea? Ashley knew something was wrong. I saw it in the way she watched me during Tommy's soccer practice on Saturday. The way she kept checking her phone. The way she touched David's arm just a little too often, like she needed reassurance. Yesterday's birthday party confrontation had shaken her. And with Detective Morton's investigation heating up, she'd started making mistakes. Margaret, she said, sliding onto the bleacher beside me while David talked to Tommy's coach. I think we need to clear the air about yesterday. I kept my eyes on Tommy as he practiced his kicks. What's there to clear up, dear? You seemed upset about something, and I just want you to know. If I said anything that hurt your feelings, it wasn't intentional. The fake sincerity in her voice made my skin crawl. Ashley, you told me my husband probably died to escape me. I'm curious which part of that wasn't intentional. She actually had the nerve to look embarrassed. I was just frustrated. Planning Tommy's party has been stressful. And sometimes I say things I don't mean when I'm overwhelmed. I finally looked at her. And the private investigator you hired to look into my finances, was that also just stress? Her face went white, then red, then white again. I don't know what you're talking about, Ashley, dear. I may be 67, but I'm not senile. I know you've been researching my assets. I know you tried to get information from my lawyer and my bank. The question is, why? She stood up abruptly. I think you're confused, Margaret. Maybe the stress of Harold's death is still affecting you more than you realize. Is that your professional opinion? Dr. Ashley, I paused. Oh, wait, you're not a doctor. You're not even who you say you are. The color drained completely from her face. I don't know what game you think you're playing, she hissed. But it stops now, the same game you played with Marcus Henderson and Robert Chen. For a split second, it looked like I had slapped her. Her carefully maintained mask cracked, and beneath it I saw something cold, ruthless, dangerous. You have no idea what you're talking about, she whispered, don't I? Should I call Detective Morton right now and let you explain it to him? Her hands began to shake. You called the police? Sweetheart, I said softly, the police called me. They're very interested in talking to you about some suspicious deaths in your past. She glanced around the soccer field, probably calculating whether she could run. David was still distracted with the coach, and Tommy was happily focused on his drills, oblivious to the storm brewing on the bleachers. Margaret, I think you've misunderstood some things, have I? Let's see if I have this right. I ticked each point off like a grocery list. You spent months researching David and our family before arranging your accidental first meeting. You've been trying to access my financial and legal information. You've been pushing dangerous supplements and questionable medical advice on me. And you have a history of marrying men whose elderly relatives die shortly after you enter the family. Ashley sat back, down, mostly because her legs were shaking too badly to keep her standing. What do you want? She asked quietly. I want you to leave my family alone, and if I don't, I smiled sweetly, then tomorrow at Sunday dinner when you serve your famous apple pie, I'll have Detective Morton waiting in the kitchen to arrest you. Ashley's breathing turned rapid and shallow. You can't prove anything, can't I? Ashley Morrison from Ohio, age 32, twice divorced. Both husbands lost elderly relatives under suspicious circumstances shortly after you married into their families. Would you like me to go on? That's all circumstantial, maybe, but it's enough to get you arrested while they investigate. And once they start digging deeper into your background, how long do you think it'll take before they find proof? David started walking toward us, and Ashley forced her face back into its usual pleasant mask. What exactly are you proposing? She whispered. Leave tonight. File for divorce, disappear, move to another state, and find another family to victimize. And if I do that, you'll keep your mouth shut? I looked out at Tommy, who was waving at us from the field. If you leave quietly, I'll give you 24 hours before I call Detective Morton with your new location. That's not enough time to what, Ashley? To plan my death? To figure out how to get access to my assets before you run? I shook my head. 24 hours is generous. David reached the bleachers. What are you two talking about so seriously? Ashley managed a bright smile. Just discussing tomorrow's dinner. I was thinking of making something special, actually, I said, standing up. I think Ashley might be too tired for cooking tomorrow. All this party planning has worn her out. Ashley's smile wobbled. Oh no, I insist. I'd hate to disappoint everyone. Well, I said, picking up my purse. I guess we'll see what tomorrow brings. As we walked to our cars, Ashley grabbed my arms. Margaret, you're making a big mistake. I looked down at her hand, then into her eyes. The only mistake I made was not figuring out what you were sooner. But don't worry, dear. I won't make that mistake again. Sunday morning arrived gray and drizzly, perfectly matching my mood. I'd spent the night wondering whether Ashley would take my advice and vanish, or show up at dinner with something more permanent in mind for dealing with her mother-in-law problem. At 9 a.m., David called. Mom, Ashley's not feeling well. She might have food poisoning from that seafood place we went to last night. We might need to cancel dinner. Food poisoning. How convenient. That's terrible, son. Is she seeing a doctor? She says it's just a 24-hour bug. She should be fine by tomorrow. So Ashley was buying herself time either to plan her next move or to disappear. I decided to force her hand. David, why don't you and Tommy come for dinner anyway? I'll make something simple and you can take a plate home to Ashley. I don't want to leave her alone when she's sick. Nonsense. Tommy shouldn't miss Sunday dinner because Ashley has an upset stomach. Besides, I have something important to discuss with you. There was a pause. What kind of something? The kind that's better said in person. Can you be here by 5? After he agreed, I made my next call. Detective Morton, it's Margaret Williams. I think tonight might be the night. Mrs. Williams, are you sure you want to go through with this? It could be dangerous. I'd spent the whole morning thinking about that. Ashley was cornered now. She knew I had evidence. She knew the police were investigating her past. And a cornered animal was always the most dangerous. Detective, she's not going to just disappear. Women like Ashley don't walk away from million-dollar paydays without a fight. What do you have in mind? I explained my plan. He thought I was crazy but agreed to have officers stationed outside my house. At 4:30, I started cooking. Simple comfort food: meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans. Nothing Ashley could easily tamper with if she showed up. David and Tommy arrived right on time. Tommy hugged me, then ran off to watch cartoons. David looked exhausted. How's Ashley feeling? I asked, keeping my voice calm. Actually, much better. She might come by later to pick us up. Of course she would. David, sit down. We need to talk. I'd rehearsed this conversation a dozen times. But looking at my son made it harder. How do you tell someone that their wife is a murderer, son? What do you know about Ashley's life before she met you? David frowned. Mom, not this again. Why are you so obsessed with Ashley's past? Because her past is about to become your future. I set one of Sandra's folders on the table. David, your wife isn't who she says she is. For 20 minutes. I showed him everything, the real birth certificate, the previous marriages, the suspicious deaths, the patterns. David's face shifted from confusion to anger to pure horror. This can't be real, he whispered, staring at the photo of Ashley surveilling him at the coffee shop. It's real, son. And there's more. I told him about Detective Morton, the reopened investigations, the supplements Ashley kept pushing on me. She's been trying to kill you. David's voice cracked. Or at least make me sick enough to need the kind of medical care that might speed up my natural timeline. David buried his face in his hands. 3 years. 3 years of marriage to a stranger. David, there's something else you need to know, I said quietly. I confronted her yesterday. His head snapped up. You what? I told her I knew who she really was. I gave her a choice: leave town or face the police. Mom, that was incredibly dangerous. Which is why Detective Morton has officers outside watching the house, as if summoned by her name. Ashley's car pulled into the driveway. David and I looked at each other across the kitchen table. What do we do? He asked. We act normal. Let her think she's still in control. The police are recording everything, so whatever she says or does becomes evidence. Ashley knocked on the front door, odd, since she usually just walked in. David went to answer it while I stayed in the kitchen, my heart pounding. Surprise. Ashley's voice floated in, bright and artificial. I'm feeling so much better. I brought dessert. She appeared in the kitchen doorway carrying a covered pie dish, wearing the same sweet smile that had fooled us for 3 years. Margaret, you look wonderful. I'm so sorry about yesterday's misunderstanding. What misunderstanding was that, dear? Ashley set the pie on the counter. All that silly talk about investigators and police. I realized you must have me confused with someone else. She started cutting the pie with smooth, practiced movements, the same movements she probably used preparing her last meal. For Marcus Henderson's mother, actually. Ashley, I said, I don't think I was confused at all. The knife stopped mid-cut. Margaret, I really think we should put all this unpleasantness behind us. I agree. David and I were just discussing how nice it would be to clear the air. Ashley looked between us, and I saw the moment she realized David knew everything. Her mask didn't slip, it shattered. How much did you tell him? She asked quietly. Everything. Ashley looked at the pie, then at us, then at Tommy playing in the living room. When she looked back, there was something desperate and dangerous in her eyes. You have no idea what you've done, she said. That's when I noticed she was still holding the Knife, the kitchen turned into a minefield of silence, broken only by Tommy's cartoons and the ticking of the wall clock. Ashley held the pie knife like she was weighing her options. Ashley, put the knife down, David said. His voice was steady, but his hands trembled. You know what's funny? Ashley said, ignoring him. I actually grew fond of you people. It would have been so much easier if you just played along. Played along with what? I asked calmly. With you murdering me? Ashley laughed, a sound that raised every hair on my arms. Murder? Oh, Margaret, you watch too much television. I don't murder anyone. Then what happened to Marcus Henderson's mother and Robert Chen's father? They died like old people do. She stepped closer to the table. Sometimes they just need a little help accepting that their time is up. David rose slowly. Ashley, whatever you're thinking, Tommy is in the next room. Sweet Tommy, for a moment. Her expression softened. He was never part of the plan. I'm not a monster, David. I don't hurt children, but you do hurt elderly parents, I said. I help families transition through difficult times. Do you have any idea how much suffering I've prevented? How much prolonged decline in medical bills and emotional agony? She was completely insane, convinced she was performing some kind of public service. And the money you inherit is just a happy coincidence? I asked. The money is compensation for services rendered. Do you know how difficult it is to care for elderly people, Margaret? How exhausting it is to pretend to love someone while you watch them deteriorate. Is that what you've been doing with me? Pretending to love me while waiting for me to deteriorate? Ashley tilted her head, considering. You were supposed to deteriorate faster. The supplements should have caused enough cardiac episodes to weaken you significantly. But you're surprisingly robust for 67. I felt sick listening to her talk about my death so casually. The new doctor you recommended, Dr. Patterson, what was his role in all this? I asked. Dr. Patterson is very understanding about elderly patients who experience sudden declines in health. Ashley said. He's also terrible at paperwork, which makes him ideal for situations that require flexibility and documentation. David shifted a little closer to her. So what now? What's your plan here? Honestly, I'm improvising. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. Ashley gestured with the knife as she spoke. Margaret was supposed to have a heart episode 3 months ago. You were supposed to inherit everything and then gratefully share it with your devoted wife, who'd sacrificed so much to care for your difficult mother. But I didn't cooperate by dying on schedule. I said, no, you didn't, and then you had to go poking around in things that weren't your business. I heard a car door slam outside. Through the kitchen window, I saw Detective Morton step out of an unmarked car. Ashley caught my glance toward the window and spun around. When she saw the detective approaching the house, her face went white. You called the police. I told you I would. Ashley looked at the knife in her hand, then at David, then at me. For a moment, I thought she might actually use it. Instead, she set it down on the counter and smoothed her hair. Well, then I suppose it's time for the final act. The front door opened, and Detective Morton called out, Mrs. Williams. I'm coming in, we're in the kitchen. Detective, I replied when he entered. Ashley was sitting calmly at the table, hands folded, looking like she was waiting for tea service. Mrs. Morrison, Detective Morton said with a nod. I'm sure you've been wanting to talk to me, Ashley replied. Am I under arrest? That depends on whether you'd like to answer some questions voluntarily, or whether we need to do this downtown. Ashley glanced around the kitchen, the pie she'd brought. David's horrified face, me sitting across from her. Detective, can I ask you something? Sure, if someone were hypothetically relieving elderly people of the burden of prolonged suffering, and if families were hypothetically benefiting financially from that relief, would that hypothetically be considered a crime? Detective Morton stared at her. Ma'am, are you confessing to something? I'm speaking hypothetically. Hypothetically. If someone were poisoning elderly people for inheritance money, that would be first-degree murder. Ashley nodded thoughtfully. I see, and if that same person were planning to do the same thing to someone else, but hadn't actually done it yet? Conspiracy to commit murder. Attempted murder. Probably several other charges. Fascinating. Ashley stood and walked to the window, looking out at the additional police cars arriving. You know, Detective, I've always been curious about something. What's that? How long does it take for someone to die from digitalis poisoning? The temperature in the kitchen seemed to drop 20 degrees. Ma'am, Detective Morton said slowly. Are you saying you've given someone digitalis? Ashley turned back to us, wearing that same sweet smile. Not yet. But Margaret's famous apple pie is cooling on the counter, and I do so hate to see good food go to waste. That's when I realized Ashley hadn't been planning to stab anyone. She'd been planning to serve us poison pie. Detective Morton moved toward her, but she lifted her hand. I wouldn't, Detective. That pie contains enough digitalis to kill 3 people, and my stepson is in the living room with very sticky fingers. If he touches the wrong surface and then puts his hand in his mouth. My blood turned to ice. You wouldn't hurt Tommy, I told you. Margaret, I don't hurt children. But accidents happen when people make poor choices. Detective Morton spoke into his radio. I need the hazmat team here immediately. And keep everyone out of the house until we can secure the scene, Ashley. David's voice cracked. Please. Tommy is innocent in all this. Everyone is innocent. David, that's what makes this all so tragic. She moved toward the living room. And Detective Morton drew his weapon. Ma'am, stop right there. Or what? Ashley asked. You'll shoot me in front of a child while a toxic substance sits on the kitchen counter? The front door opened again, and I heard more officers entering the house. Detective Morton. One of them called. We've got the perimeter secured. Tell them not to touch anything in the kitchen. Detective Morton shouted back. And get that child out of the living room, Ashley laughed. Too late for that, I'm afraid. We all rushed to the living room doorway. Tommy was sitting on the couch exactly where he'd been before, completely absorbed in his cartoons. His hands were clean and he didn't seem to have touched anything dangerous. Tommy, I said softly. Sweetheart, can you come to Grandma Maggie? Just a minute, Grandma. This is the good part, Ashley smiled. Children never listen when you really need them to, Ashley, Detective Morton said carefully. Let's work this out. No one has been hurt yet. No one except Marcus Henderson's mother, Robert Chen's father. And probably 6 or 7 others over the years that you don't know about yet. The casual admission sent chills down my spine. 6 or 7 others? Detective Morton asked. Did you think David was only my 3rd husband? Ashley said lightly. Oh, Detective, you have no idea how long I've been perfecting my craft. Why don't you tell me about it? He asked, inching closer. Ashley looked thoughtful. You know what? I think I will. After all, what's the point of being brilliant if no one appreciates your work? She settled into an armchair across from Tommy, who was still oblivious to everything happening around him. It started when I was 22. Ashley began, her voice taking on a dreamy quality. I was working as a home health aide for an elderly man named George Whitman. Sweet old man. Very wealthy. Very lonely. His family never visited. What happened to Mr. Whitman? Detective Morton asked, moving slowly forward. Heart failure. Very sudden. Very peaceful. And George had grown quite fond of me over the months I'd cared for him. He changed his will to leave me a small inheritance. How small? $200,000. Enough to change my life. I felt sick listening to her talk about murder like it was a career milestone. That's when I realized I had a gift, Ashley continued. I understood what elderly people needed: peace, release from the burden of aging, and I was very good at providing that. So you made it your business? I asked. I made it my calling. Do you have any idea how many families I've helped? How much suffering I've prevented? Tommy finally looked up from his cartoons. Dad, why are there police here? David knelt beside him. Tommy, I need you to go outside with the nice officers. Grandma Maggie and I will be out in a minute, but my show isn't over. You can watch it on my phone outside, as an officer gently led Tommy out. Ashley's expression softened. I'm going to miss that little boy. You're not going anywhere near him ever again, David said fiercely. Oh, David, Ashley sighed. You still don't understand, do you? Understand what? Ashley reached into her purse and pulled out a small vial of clear liquid. I didn't put the digitalis in the pie, David, she said softly. I put it in the mashed potatoes you've been eating for the past hour. The room exploded into chaos. David dropped to his knees, clutching his stomach. Detective Morton lunged at Ashley, shouting for paramedics. I knelt beside my son as his face turned gray. David, stay with me. Stay with me. Behind me, Ashley's voice was calm and satisfied. Don't worry, Margaret. I calculated the dose very carefully. He'll die slowly enough for you to say goodbye. That's when I completely lost my mind. I launched myself at her, 67 years old or not. I was going to tear her apart with my bare hands. Detective Morton caught me before I reached her. But not before I got close enough to spit in her face. You're done, I snarled. You're finished. Ashley wiped her cheek delicately. Actually, Margaret, I think you are. She lifted the vial to her lips and drank the contents before anyone could stop her. You see, Detective, she said, sinking to the floor, dead women tell no tales. And without my testimony, you'll never be able to prove any of this happened. As Ashley collapsed, Detective Morton was already on his radio, calling for multiple ambulances and ordering the hospital to prepare for 2 poisoning victims. I held David's hand as he struggled to breathe, watching the woman who had nearly destroyed my family convulse on my living room carpet. She's not going to win, I whispered to my son. I won't let her win. 3 weeks later, I sat in David's hospital room, watching him try to eat solid food for the first time since Ashley's poisoning attempt. The doctor said he'd make a full recovery, I said. But it'll take months of rehabilitation to undo the damage the digitalis did to his heart, Mom. You don't have to stay here all day, he said, pushing away the bowl of soup. Tommy needs you, too. Tommy's fine. He's with Linda today, and they're making cookies. I reached for his hand. Besides, where else would I be? David was quiet for a moment. I keep thinking about all the signs I missed. All the times Ashley said or did things that should have warned me, son, she was a professional. This is what she did for a living, but 3 years, Mom, 3 years of sleeping next to a killer. I understood his guilt, but I also knew it wasn't productive. The only person responsible for Ashley's actions was Ashley. The irony was that she had saved the prosecutors a lot of trouble by poisoning herself that night. She died before the ambulance reached the hospital, taking most of her secrets with her, but Detective Morton had gotten enough from her confession to close several cold cases. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Detective Morton stood there holding a manila envelope. Detective, how nice to see you, I said. I wanted to update you both on the investigation, he said, pulling up a chair. Ashley Morrison, or whatever her real name was, has been linked to 9 suspicious deaths across 6 states over the past 15 years. David closed his eyes. 9 people. The good news, Morton continued, is that her death has closed all those cases. The families finally have answers. He handed me the envelope. These are copies of all the evidence we used in the case. I thought you might want them for your peace of mind. Thank you, Detective. What about Dr. Patterson? He's been arrested. Turns out he'd been providing fraudulent death certificates for several suspicious deaths, not just Ashley's victims. He's looking at federal charges. After Detective Morton left, David and I sat in comfortable silence for a while. Finally, he spoke. Mom, I need to ask you something. Anything. How did you know? What made you suspicious of Ashley in the first place? I had been dreading this question because the answer was embarrassing. She complimented my apple pie. David stared at me. What? 3 months after your wedding, she told me my apple pie was delicious. But Mom, you'd never made apple pie for Ashley. You'd never even mentioned baking pies. That's it. That's what started my investigation. Son, when someone lies about something that's small and meaningless, it makes you wonder what else they're lying about. David shook his head. A compliment about pie nearly got me killed. No, marrying a serial killer nearly got you killed. The pie just helped me figure it out. A month later, Tommy and I were in my kitchen making actual apple pie when he asked the question I'd been expecting. Grandma Maggie, why did Ashley try to hurt Dad? I'd been thinking about this answer for weeks. How do you explain evil to an 8-year-old without terrifying him? Tommy, sometimes people get sick in their hearts and minds. Ashley was very sick. And when people are that sick, they sometimes hurt others, but she seemed so nice, she did. And that's why we have to be careful about people, even when they seem nice. What matters is how people treat us over time, not just how they seem at first. Tommy nodded solemnly, then brightened. Is Dad going to be okay? Dad is going to be just fine. The doctors say he'll be home next week, and you're okay, too? I looked at my grandson. This beautiful boy who'd almost lost his father because a monster had infiltrated our family. I'm better than okay, sweetheart. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. 6 months later, I stood in the courthouse as the judge finalized David's divorce from Ashley Morrison posthumously. It was a strange legal proceeding, divorcing a dead woman, but necessary to untangle the financial mess Ashley had created. Mrs. Williams, David's lawyer, approached me after the hearing. All of your assets have been secured and returned to your control. The house deed has been corrected and your bank accounts are back in your name only. I nodded, relieved. Ashley had managed to transfer some of my assets to joint accounts before her death, but the courts had reversed everything once her crimes were proven. What about the life insurance policy on David that Ashley took out? Voided. Insurance companies don't pay out when the beneficiary attempts to murder the insured. As we walked out of the courthouse, David put his arm around my shoulders. So what now, Mom? You could sell the house and travel, see the world. You've got decades of life left. I thought about it. At 67, I did have years ahead of me. I could do anything I wanted. Actually, I think I'll stay put for a while. Maybe take up baking more seriously. I've been thinking about opening a small cafe. That sounds perfect. And David, I think you and Tommy should move back in with me for a while. That house has too many memories of Ashley. David smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from him since the poisoning. I think we'd like that, Mom. As we drove home together, I thought about Ashley's final words to me. Dead women tell no tales. She'd been wrong about that. Dead women who leave behind evidence and confessions tell plenty of tales. But living women who fight for their families? We tell the best stories of all. Now, I'm curious about you who listen to my story. Have you ever had to protect your family from someone dangerous? Have you ever discovered that someone you trusted wasn't who they seemed to be? Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.